This week's episode is brought to you by us, the Goliath Foundation. The Goliath Foundation exists to positively impact men who are struggling to find purpose in life and shed toxic masculinity. We support mental health by offering cohort learning, interactive workshops, and speaking engagements to address the issues of suicide, violence, retaliation, and addiction. We believe that cost should not be a barrier to those seeking help with their mental health. You can support this cause by sponsoring a champ, which can help cover the cost of coaching for someone in need, support the facilitation of a learning session with a business in your area, allowing individuals to join our group cohort at a lower cost, and much more. Find out how at thegoliathfoundation.com. And now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
So what you're saying is, Dad, you're punchy and like you know all this stuff. What are you doing? Get on track. Kinda.
Only a teeny tiny baby little bit, am I saying that? The tiniest little bit.
Okay.
That's okay. But on the topic of I'm trying to think of a good segue. On the topic of uh memory is a part of the brain and mental health. And as you know, last time you spoke with us, we were talking to the amazing Jefferson Rock, creator of Amy.
The amazing Jefferson Rock. He really is an amazing guy.
He's a super cool guy. I was actually blown away by how like smart and creative he is. He's awesome.
I know, and it's coming from the right place too, and just listening to him talking about his being raised by these strong women who obviously made him just gave him just such a great background, a great foundation of education, which he said was huge in his place, but spirituality and morals, and it all comes through with him. It's just such a exemplary person and father and doing something amazing in the world.
And it's a very sincere, I feel, venture. I feel like a lot of people, especially with his background in sales, could look at the problem that he looked at and look at it from a financial sense of what can I gain from fixing this problem financially, whatever clout wise. But he's a very sincere person. He seems to very sincerely want to help. And it comes from a place of being somebody who was there and needed some help himself and who knows how hard it can be to get that help. So as, you know, as smart as he is, he definitely could have made this a very non-genuine project. You know what I mean? But
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
it comes across very sincere and very yeah, super smart.
hmm I like when he was talking about re-engineering the whole process of mental health and mental wellness, and I think that's like for a lot of people when they take on complex issues, in anything, you kind of go back, you reverse engineer it, right?
Hmm.
And I found that quite interesting how his kind of mind went to that as a kind of and I guess he has that well intellectual but that engineer mind of like, okay, how does this actually work, how does the mind work, like what are the components or whatever, right? Reverse engineering there, right? Like how do you get to the end result, right, of
Hmm.
mental health, right? What are the issues? So
Yeah, kind of like hacking the brain, right? And
yeah.
yeah, as soon as he started talking about there's a part where he starts to talk about, I think he calls them pain points or something like that
Yeah.
in a sales line. Like he's so in his element and he's so quick and he's so smart and he's able to apply mental health to the field that he's best at, it seems, and put it into terms that make it mental health is such an emotional conversation. He's able to make it a logical conversation for the purpose of getting to the point. Like we talked about in that episode, all of the ways that a person couldn't say no to Amy as a mental health solution in the workplace because he's built it from a sales perspective with a sincere and genuine purpose. So, like I think I said in that episode, even the most like Mr. Burns-esque, like evil corporate like ghoul would still have to look at what Amy is and what it does and find it worth their time and worth their money. Like there's no way they couldn't, right?
Mm, absolutely. Yeah, no, and it was so interesting again, like the impetus for him even doing it, because again, it seemed like he was doing quite well. He said he was talking about being an entrepreneur, being entrepreneur minded, starting up these businesses, and so he was going down this path. But then, through a sequence of events, he found himself, basically, you know, kind of going through like waking up in deep sweats and kind
Mm-hmm.
of a panic attacks basically. And uh and I found that super interesting. It's not like, because a lot of people, they deal with health issues or anxiety or depression or whatever throughout their life, so it's just, you kind of adapt or whatever. But for somebody who, like, kind of, it seems like he was kind of on top of the ball from, fairly early, to all of a sudden start to kind of like realize, wow, this could happen to anybody. I found that
Mm-hmm.
super interesting, that he was, again, highly educated, good morals, all this kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden he's like, wow, this could happen to anybody. And his motivation, he said, was really his kids, so this doesn't
Mm-hmm.
happen to his kids, right?
Yeah.
And realizing that, it doesn't matter how smart you are, it doesn't matter how you know balanced you are. I mean, I don't know exactly how balanced he was, but it can happen to anybody, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like a lot of the time that we've talked about mental health, it's either, like you said, it's either this long-standing kind of thing that's just always there and you're always kind of swimming upstream, or it completely knocks you off track. Like you're a Jefferson where you're doing well, everything's going great, your businesses. I mean, I think he said he did have like one failed business, which I think is part of
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. But like you're living this great life, you've got a wife, you've got kids, you've got da 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 da. Like all of the markers of a good life and a successful life are there, and yet you find yourself waking up in cold sweats and you don't know why. And maybe the point isn't that you're hitting all these, targets. Maybe the point is that, yeah, it can happen to anyone, and we don't always necessarily know why, or we've been holding on to things and
Mm,
how do we find a solution to that? And I've I've always thought that mental health apps are so smart because a lot of people that need help the most aren't going to see a therapist, and they're not going to feel like they can reach out to family or friends, or they're embarrassed to. Sometimes I feel like I was just reading something. Oh yeah, I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw this little video that and it's kind of morbid. I don't know why I'm laughing. Well, no, it was funny, but also morbid.
because you're a bad person.
I am a bad person, but it was funny and morbid because it was just a little video of this girl saying, like, people will often say, like, wow, people who are depressed get so sad they can't brush their teeth. And then she was like, yeah, Martha, people get so depressed they kill themselves. Like, yeah, like these, like that's the whole thing. Like, yeah, it affects your whole life. And
Yeah,
people don't realize that those aren't the signs of someone who doesn't love themselves enough or who doesn't eat enough veggies or whatever. That's the sign of someone who is struggling.
yeah.
And those things, like being depressed enough to not brush your teeth every day or not shower or not do whatever, that is a body asking for help. And that is a body that's too embarrassed to say, "Hey, I'm depressed." And the next step from me not taking my garbage out is me not showing up to work.
Hmm.
So, not having an outlet to have these conversations without feeling judged by family and friends, to me, is life-saving.
Hmm.
I don't know how it couldn't be.
Well, that's I got to bring these two things up really quickly before I forget. It could be in and out, but I mean, we talked about that with him about the stigma that like on the job site where even people if people are feeling things they want to reach out. There's that stigma of like,
Mm-hmm.
well, like I'm damaged goods now. And I also wanted to kind of just go back, because again, talking about Jefferson and all of a sudden he started to kind of um, have a bit of a meltdown in his own way. And it goes back to, I forget what we labeled it, but with our good friend Ian Hill, something about some under the hood.
Mm.
What was it? What was that episode called?
We called it popping the hood.
Popping the hood on mental
Mm-hmm.
health or mental, because again he was another guy, that he was another guy. He was like, you could check off all the box, super successful,
Yeah.
super ambitious, super driven and inspiring, this and that, but imploding, imploding in his own mind, and how much does this happen? And then how many guys, because again, that was the thing that was so interesting. I mean, part of the discussion that we had with Jefferson was that, how many people are going through this on a job site, but they don't feel like they can really reach out because of the stigma attached
Mm-hmm.
to it. Whereas, like these apps where there's some kind of it's personalized apps, but it also kind of gives you a little bit of distance from your peers or whatever that you're working with or you're seeing on a day-to-day basis. I mean, there's all these things are so important, and that maybe don't get mentioned or just talked about enough, that it's great to want to reach out, but if you feel like, oh man, like I'm not going to get that promotion, or I'm not going to get this, or people are going to look at me different. I mean, there's all these things that keep people from reaching out,
Mm-hmm.
right? When they need it the most, right? When they could be imploding and like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, and I think we've seen enough examples over the past however many years that all the hallmarks of a good life are not an indication that somebody doesn't need help. And we saw it with Robin Williams. I mean, it shocked the world because he was the funny guy and he had all the things and he was famous and he had lots of money. And that didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything. We saw with Johnny Depp, one of the most famous men in the world, like international sex symbol, was being abused in the home and nobody knew. And he wasn't telling anybody. He wasn't, he was covering for his abuser as most people who are abused do.
And we
And
saw it with
so,
Will Smith.
yep, we saw that
You,
with Will Smith,
you
who,
don't go up and slap somebody for a joke in front of the world if you're not suffering with mental health issues, right?
yeah, and that's,
Again,
he's
take
a,
everything off the
yeah,
box, right?
very famous person, very, very, um,
Wealthy,
very wealthy.
accepting his Academy Award, and still imploding.
Hmm. Yeah, you can have everything and still not be happy. So I think it's important that people know that there is no there and we talked about this in the recap for Aunt Ivory, your sister's episode. There is no not sad enough. There is no not sad enough. If you're sad enough and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
you deserve what Amy can do, which is to help you build a circle of trust, to help you
Mm,
to ping those resources your way, to help you get to the point and not and I'm going to use the word waste even though I need to elaborate on it, and not waste your time and money shopping for what you might need. Shopping
yeah.
for, I mean, how long do you see a therapist generally before you actually get to the point of what's really going on? How long do you
Yeah.
see a doctor trying to figure out, going through scans and da 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 and this and that, trying to get to the point of what's going on and then finding a solution? You can, if you can cut the fat on some of that stuff so that when you do find when you do find a solution that you want to approach, you can go in empowered and in confidence over your own fate and not kind of creeping in like something's wrong with me and I don't know what it
Mm.
is and I'm broken. Blah, blah, blah. You can walk in and go, hey, I have ADHD. I need medicine. Um, what are my options? Like, I was able to go into my doctor after however long of therapy and say, hey, I need you to test me for this. And she
Yeah, yeah.
did. And at, 28 or something, I was finally diagnosed with what, like, something huge. Like, it affects your entire life, and you don't know
Mm,
why you are the way that you are. You just think that you're broken. And sometimes there's really obvious, easy answers to that. And if
mm.
you're not feeling empowered enough to ask for what you need, you're not going to.
Well, I was gonna say, it's so interesting because again, I don't 100% understand. Like, I mean, I don't have the scientific brain. I'm not computer literate. I'm none of those things. But the way I kind of see it a little bit is like we have these. We go onto our computers and we punch in whatever we punch in, and we look at whatever we look at, and all these algorithms are directing us to, they're all matching us to exactly what we want to see, and they're
Hmm.
all going into our brains. And basically, the way I see what Jefferson Rock has done is basically he's created a mental health algorithm that will direct us exactly based on what we say, what we do, how we are using this app. This is what you need. Just, I mean, that's basically the way I kind of see it. It's just and why wouldn't we? And that may be not the best description of it, but I mean, why wouldn't we have a mental health app that's basically doing what our computers and what our phones are doing, locating us and showing us where we've been, everywhere that we didn't even know that we were being tracked and this and that? Why wouldn't we have the same thing for a mental health app that's basically just finding the routes to where you want to be by what you're putting, what you're saying,
Hmm.
basically it's the same thing. It's just matching the algorithms of your mental health, right?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. That's pretty much it from what it sounds like, from what he described it as. And, it's yeah, it's a pretty obvious, now that it exists, it's an obvious
I
solution to the mental health
know.
trouble in our world, because we're already on our phones
Yeah.
24/7. We're already on our computers 24/7. We might as well flick open an app that, the more we use it, the more it's going to come to know us, to be able to say, "Hey, we noticed that you weren't logging in as often. Are you okay, or are you feeling better? Are you not here
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you feel good, or because you feel bad? Because if you feel bad, we need you back." Like, I think that this is a really, really smart solution. And
Well,
yeah.
sorry.
No, no,
I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna say when you think about it, and again, I don't really. I mean, I would really have to be on the way he describes it is fascinating. But
Hmm.
again, I'm not a smarty pants. But to imagine the way I imagine it, like with that algorithm of mental health, basically, and Amy kind of directing you always constantly to where you want to go, even though you don't know you're being directed there, but directing it for your mental wellness. How could we have not had this like way years ago?
Hmm.
It seems almost like a no-brainer now that what Jefferson has done is like, of course we need this. Of course we should have this. If we have all this other stuff, well, so it's just like
Hmm.
it's like yeah. Oh,
Well, yeah, and I think the issue with that is that the kinds of people that have been talking about mental health up to now are people like you, and I'm gonna say like you and me, um, where it's like, hey, are you going through something? Hey, let's sit down and talk about it. Let's go for a coffee. What do you need? What can I do for you? And we're not, I think we're the more like immediate heart people, where, because that's the way mental health conversations have been for the last, since we started talking about mental health. It's all kind of heart conversation, and it's all like, oh, do you need a hug? Like, do you know what am I making any sense? So these
no.
logical, well, what I'm trying to say is that these
I'm
logical brains haven't been having the
uh,
conversations. Like, they're busy doing other
uh,
stuff, and now logical brains are getting in on it.
yeah.
And now we're getting these like really, really smart solutions where you can offer a hug to 100,000 people at the same time.
Yeah,
And if some of them don't like being hugged in a certain way, like Amy is programmed to like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah.
we're just getting all these smart minds that have been doing other things this whole time finally in on the conversation so that what one person does for one other person can be done for everybody all the time.
All over the world. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, again, I'm just so inspired. He just seems like such a great guy, such a genuinely good family man, and
Hmm.
good morals, doing the right thing, and and having created something that's going to really impact the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just it's amazing, and we could say we knew him when.
We knew him when, yeah, it's pretty amazing how many fields and how many lines of like how many production lines this hits because it hits the care provider, it hits the it hits the employer, it hits the employee, it hits the family. Like it
Yeah.
touches every single aspect of someone's life. It's it's
Hmm.
pretty crazy. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, and again, I think that you and I should be very transparent about the fact that, well, at least I don't want to speak for you, but I want to make sure that everybody's like, I have not actually tried the app, so I don't really know exactly. But from what I understand from what he's saying,
Hmm.
it is as we were talking about, right? Like almost like an algorithm for the mind. But again, if I just want to make as a disclaimer, make sure that I'm not wording it in a way that would be where he would be like, no, no. But I believe that's pretty close to what he's done, right?
Yeah, and I mean if you're listening to this episode, you probably already listened to that episode where
Yeah,
he explained
exactly.
himself. It I believe that Amy is in like waiting list period right now, so I don't believe that it's even out for trial because I think as soon as we got off the phone or got off the call, I was like trying to sign up for
Yeah,
Amy and
yeah.
I believe that it's just in like they're launching soon. So but we're not sponsored by Amy. We would love to be, but we're not. Um, but definitely, if you're interested, go to their website, which will be linked down below, and sign up to be on their waiting list and get updates because I'm super excited. I there's yeah, everything that we couldn't say is on the website. It's yeah,
For
it's pretty
sure.
awesome. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, I just on a different note. Did you were you going to say something? Does it look like I was going in for a nose pick?
I wasn't
And it
even
was just went to rub my mustache. It was like, oh no, I can't do this on camera.
He's having like the evil hand trying to pick his nose.
I gotta say, on a no, I don't want to go down that road on
No,
this
no.
professional.
No, no, tell the audience.
No, I can't. I was just gonna say, ever since I was a kid, I had a real thing about nose pickers.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I'm just not a nose picker. I mean,
I
just
know even when I like itch my nose or like touch my nose ring, I'm always like, does someone think I'm picking my nose? Like I'm not, I'm like I'll
I
touch my
know.
nose on the bus and be like, see someone looking at me and I'm like, I'm itching the outside. I'm not going
uh,
inside. I'm not
uh,
weird.
I'm the same way. My beard sometimes it tickles my nose, so I'll be like
Mm.
this. But I'm just like, even to myself, I'm like, don't go up there.
Like you have to prove
Don't you
you're like
go up there. Yeah.
it's on the outside, not on the inside.
Yeah, even to myself, I'm
Me
just like,
too.
don't you do it,
I
don't
don't want
you?
even to look like I'm going near my nose. Even when I like do one of these, I'll usually do it a couple times so people can see that there's like it's a little thing. I'm not going in my nose. I promise.
Now I'm gonna start a little LinkedIn post or something like that. Oh, and by the way, I saw Willow. She was
Check out
walking. She didn't know anybody was seeing, and she was like digging for gold.
mining. Check out the latest episode of the podcast where Willow was digging for gold in her brain. I actually feel like during this last trip that I was on, I looked over in the car and saw someone like way up there. You're gonna touch the steering wheel with that finger, you nasty dog. What's
That's
wrong with you?
That's a bad.
It's
That's a
so
bad when
gross.
you. That's a bad when you catch somebody. They're just like they're digging away. And they see that they've been caught. Just like
Yeah, it's like when
the
people
best.
there's like videos of people have their hands down the back of their pants, kind of like itching, and then they'll look around, they're like,
Oh man, we've gone down such a bad road. Oh my god, we're gonna get booted off
We're gonna get canceled. This is what the Love and Goliath podcast gets canceled for. Stop.
exactly.
Well, I think we got it. Obviously, we could not say everything that we had to say as articulately as Jefferson. So if you haven't listened to that episode, please go back and listen to it. He's such a smart, he's a crazy intelligent individual, and he can say it all far better than we can. His socials and whatnot are all down below, and as they should be. Yes.
And it's definitely worth listening to because again, I think this is the way of the future. Just like just like somebody a dumb old me like 40 years ago. Who's gonna use computers? It's
Now
like
look at us.
yeah, and pretty soon, Amy's gonna be the same way. Everybody's using Amy, of course. Duh.
Yeah. Yeah. Nope. I agree with you completely. So check what Jefferson is up to out. That was a weird sentence to try to say.
That was weird.
Check Jefferson out in the thing that he does doing. Uh Descriptions all below. There you go. It'll all be super easy for you to find. Uh and sign up for the waiting list, definitely for sure. And do we want to like give a sneak peek of what we're working on to perhaps launch come December 2022? Do it for just for listeners. If you're listening to the podcast right now or watching it, this is just for you and nobody else. Nobody else knows.
Nobody else.
Nobody else
Nobody
knows.
else. Shh. And if we hear that you mention anything, we're gonna break your legs.
Yeah.
It's gonna be some of this. Okay, you go.
No, you go. No, you go. No, you
Because I
go.
really don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you only wrote the dang thing.
Is it a book?
Yeah, it might be the hit up and coming novel Facing Goliath by sociology major trainer Ben Smith.
Wow, how long has this been in production? How long has this been? Oh, I see something remaining time.
Yeah, we better
But
hurry up. It's been in production for the last 50 years.
well, I'm 51, so the first year was collecting data.
Okay, and then writing. It was
And
like
then I was
goo goo gaga, gaga goo goo goo, gaga gaga. Chapter 1.
well, I gotta say, I'm so excited to go on to this phase of it because
Mhm.
it's definitely been a process for me to kind of get my head around like what it because I wrote it quite a long time ago. So, but that's for another discussion.
That's for another discussion, but for now, you can check out the first chapter of Facing Goliath on our website. So please do go give it a read. I have not read all of it because it makes me sad, but definitely check it out. And you can give us your email for updates. We'll let you know when it's ready for pre-order. Very exciting, very cool, very funky. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to share this with you guys.
Me too.
But with all that said, thank you all so much. Father of mine, thank you for the time that you've made today. Jefferson,
Yes.
thank you for an amazing episode, an amazing conversation.
Yes. Thank you, Jefferson.
And we'll catch all of you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for joining us, as always. We love hearing from you, so if you have comments, questions about the episode, topics you want us to cover, or anything else, you can find us on Instagram as Loving Goliath, on Facebook as The Goliath Foundation. You can email us at lovinggoliath@gmail.com, or you can find out more information about the Goliath Foundation at thegoliathfoundation.com. Hey, did you know that 36% of our listeners tune in through Apple Podcasts? If that's you and you liked what you heard today, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you again, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.